Mobutu Sese Seko, born Joseph Desire Mobutu on October 14, 1930 and died on September 7, 1997, was a Congolese military and political leader who ruled the Democratic Republic of the Congo from 1965 to 1997. His long reign, marked by significant political, social, and economic upheavals, left a complex legacy for the country and the wider African continent. Early life and rise to power. Mobutu was born in Lisala, in what was then the Belgian Congo. He was the son of a low-level civil servant and initially worked in various administrative jobs. Mobutu's early education was in the Belgian-controlled Congo, where he studied at a colonial school and later at the Belgian Royal Military Academy. In the late 1950s, as the Belgian Congo moved toward independence, Mobutu became involved in politics. He joined the army and rapidly advanced through the ranks, and by 1960, he was an officer in the newly formed Congolese army. This was a period of instability for the country, as Congo gained independence from Belgium but faced political chaos, including regional rebellions and the secession of the mineral-rich province of Katanga. Mobutu was appointed Chief of Staff of the Army during the Congo crisis, a time when the country's first Prime Minister, Patrice Lumumba, was ousted and eventually executed in 1961. Mobutu initially allied with the West and Western-backed forces, consolidating power in the military and gradually gaining control over the country's political landscape. The coup of 1965. In 1965, Mobutu staged a coup against the sitting president, Joseph Kasavubu, and took power with the support of the military and the CIA, which saw him as a reliable ally during the Cold War. Mobutu assumed the presidency and began a period of authoritarian rule that would last over 3 decades. Zaire, the Authenticity Revolution. Once in power, Mobutu changed his name to Mobutu Sese Seko, which means the all-powerful warrior who, because of his endurance and will, goes from victory to victory. He implemented a series of policies to solidify his power and reshape the country according to his vision. One of the most famous aspects of his rule was the Authenticity movement, which sought to replace colonial symbols and European influences with traditional African culture. In 1971, he renamed the country from the Democratic Republic of the Congo to Zaire. He also encouraged citizens to adopt African names, dress in traditional attire, and embrace African values. Mobutu's government became increasingly repressive, silencing opposition, and consolidating control over the military, media, and political institutions. Authoritarian rule and corruption. Under Mobutu, Zaire became a one-party state, with the People's Revolution Movement as the only legal political party. The regime was marked by significant corruption, as Mobutu and his associates looted the country's vast natural resources, enriching themselves while the majority of the population lived in poverty. Mobutu maintained a tight grip on power, using the military and secret police to suppress dissent. He cultivated a personality cult, projecting himself as the father of the nation, and surrounded himself with a lavish lifestyle that contrasted sharply with the conditions of most Zaireans. Mobutu was often seen as a puppet of Western powers, especially during the Cold War, due to his staunch anti-communism. He received significant military and economic aid from the United States and European countries in exchange for his allegiance. Decline and fall. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, Mobutu's regime began to show signs of strain. The economy of Zaire, once prosperous because of its mineral wealth, was in steep decline due to mismanagement, corruption, and international sanctions. The political landscape also changed. African leaders began to demand more democratic reforms, and the end of the Cold War weakened Mobutu's position. In 1990, Mobutu reluctantly allowed the formation of a national conference to discuss political reforms, but he did so only to placate international pressures. However, the national conference eventually led to calls for Mobutu's removal. Throughout the early 1990s, political unrest increased, and by 1996, neighboring Rwanda's genocidal violence spilled over into Zaire, creating further instability. A rebellion led by Laurent Desire Kabila, supported by Rwandan and Ugandan troops, grew stronger. In May 1997, after months of intense fighting, Mobutu was forced to flee the country. His regime collapsed, and Kabila's forces entered the capital, Kinshasa. Mobutu fled to Morocco, where he died of cancer on September 7, 1997, just a few months after being deposed. Legacy. Mobutu's rule left a legacy of instability, corruption, and impoverishment. While Zaire was rich in natural resources, Mobutu's policies enriched him and his allies while leaving much of the population in poverty. His failure to build strong institutions or to invest in education, healthcare, and infrastructure contributed to the long-lasting crises that the country would continue to face after his fall from power. Mobutu's regime is often cited as one of the most extreme examples of African dictatorship, and his rule played a role in the prolonged instability that followed in the DRC, which was marked by the First and Second Congo Wars. His time in power serves as a cautionary tale of the dangers of authoritarianism, corruption, and the lack of political accountability in post-colonial Africa. Despite the tragic aspects of his rule, Mobutu remains a highly controversial figure. Some view him as a charismatic leader who helped maintain stability in a chaotic period, while others condemn his actions for ruining the nation's potential and creating the conditions for decades of turmoil.